Welcome back. Do you know the difference between a will and a living trust? There are some important distinctions, and here to discuss and explain this with us today are Chris Maggi and Kirk Agus with Maggi Tax and Wealth Advisors. So great to see both of you today.
Good to see you, Roxanne.
Great to be here. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I want to start with you, Kirk, and just break down the difference for us between wills and trusts.
Sure. Well, the easiest way is one avoids probate, one does not. So a will always has to pass through the probate process. Inside of a will is just direction to the courts, right? Who gets what? That's what you're doing there. A trust avoids probate, but it only avoids probate if it either owns an asset or is a named beneficiary of a particular asset, right? So can somebody get by with a will? Yes, they can. Just understand that you have to have everything else outside of that titled the right way. But if you really want to stay out of the probate process, a living trust is going to do that for you.
Mm-hmm. Right, so you really need to have both documents when you're doing your family planning. Mm-hmm. And then as far as that living trust goes, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make with it?
Oh, that's a good question, Roxanne. Unfortunately, a lot of times we meet with clients and they'll tell us they have a trust set up. We say, great, what does the trust own? I said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, is the house in the trust? No, I haven't gotten to that yet, so on and so forth. When you create a trust, it's just a bunch of legal documents, but you have to complete the process. You have to fund the trust. And funding is the process of retitling assets into the name of the trust. If you don't do that, you're defeating the purpose. So I might have a house that's jointly owned with my wife. We create a living trust, but we don't put we don't put the home into the trust. We both pass away, it's going through probate. Now our kids might say, wait, time out. Mom and dad have a trust, but we didn't complete the process. So when you don't fund it the right way, that's where the mistakes happen.
So there's room for error with all of this stuff. That's why you need to rely on the experts. And also along the lines of a will versus just having a designated beneficiary on a financial property. What's kind of the difference in the protection mechanisms?
Oh my gosh, we do complete planning and we see checking accounts, investment accounts, IRAs, brokerage accounts. They're not titled the right way. When's the last time you had a beneficiary review? And that's why it's so important if you have any type of investments and documents, you want to make sure you have the beneficiary form. I've seen countless times, husband is not on there and they have a wife who has the account or vice versa. There's no contingent beneficiaries. So even in your checking or savings account, you want to make sure you have what they call a POD, which is paid on death, or a brokerage account, transfer on death. So these are ways to avoid probate without having these documents, but it's so important to make sure that all your accounts, whether it's a little bit amount in there or a lot, to make sure it avoids probate.
That's so true. You want to avoid probate, and you really, when you think about this, we're all going in one direction, right? And the best thing that we can do is leave our loved ones with clarity, with simplicity, and just where everything is where we want it, and then also what's good for them. So this is the way to do it. You've got to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
You do. Yeah, a lot of people like to put it off. I'd say they're procrastinators, right? We see that. But when you don't have these documents, that's when you run into the issues.
Mm-hmm. Yes, procrastinators or invincible. And I felt that way in my life. Not so much anymore the older I get. Mm-hmm. One final piece of advice for anyone who's getting ready to have this conversation, what do you offer in terms of comfort level of going through all of this?
So that's it. Visit our website at maggitax.com. There's so much information right there. But what we do when you come on in, we put together a balance sheet of all your assets. Making sure that everything is titled the right way. So if you have investment accounts, like I mentioned before, it doesn't matter how much you have in there, make sure that it's titled the right way. So you have a distribution plan, and that's what we could do for you. So pick up the phone, schedule a time to meet with us. But it's so important to make sure that everything you have is clearly defined of where you want it to go.
So true, so true. Yeah. We always love talking with you. We want to provide more information for our viewers so you can see it there on the screen as well if you want to reach out. And we just appreciate you coming in and explaining all this so well. There it is. Go ahead and call and schedule a free will and trust consultation. You can't beat that. Thank you both for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Roxanne.